Wake up, wake up. Good morning. It's the dark side of education. I'm your host, Rashad Turner. You're tuning in live on Justice for the Cities. We've got another great show today. Got a great guest coming on to talk about her campaign running for school board. Miss Adriana Cerrigo be joining us shortly. I hope everybody's been doing well. I know I've been doing well this past week. Had to take some time to catch my breath, get rejuvenated. You see, I might have some tan lines and stuff. So I'm refreshed, rejuvenated, still dealing with the haters, right? One of the things I want to talk about today, just a little bit. I ain't gonna spend too much time on these clowns, but we've been getting a lot of pushback, I ain't gonna say pushback, right? But just a lot of BS from our teachers union worshipers here in Minnesota. They have been coming at us pretty hard about our funding partners. But the one thing I want to sort of point out to folks is that these people have no idea what they're talking about. They're continuing to spew a false narrative, continuing to disregard our voices as parents of color, disregard the outcomes of our children. All right, I've never been in so many conversations about academic outcomes in our children that get pivoted to people talking about funding. All right, you're funded by these people, you're funded by those people. I say stop the white on white crime, right? If you aren't reaching into your pocket, into your privilege to support families as we try and support our children, no one cares what you're talking about, right? You can tweet, you can Facebook comment. I want you all to know that our funders here in Minnesota, they care about families of color. They care about leaders of color. And they're not our masters, as some of you white folks on Twitter might make them, come off as like they're our masters. They're not. Our funders of Minnesota Parent Union, they don't tell me, they don't tell us, here's what you all have to do. You know how it works with our funding partners? You all tell us what you're going to do, Minnesota Parent Union, and we're here to support that. We're here to support you. So the folks who want to try to take the conversation into, oh, well, your funders want to end public education, right? Shut up. What Miss K said, I think that's the Twitter handle. No one cares what you said. No one's listening. When these white people come at me talking about, well, tell us who your funders are, I think to myself, who do these people think they are to demand that we list our funders? If they had any idea what they were talking about, they would know that as a nonprofit, there's this thing called a 990 form. When we have to complete a 990, all of our funding partners will be listed there. That's the rules. That's the law. We follow the rules. We follow the law. So for those of you who want to know who our funders are, you'll find out when the time comes. From here on out, though, all of those funding questions, you're going to get radio silence anytime you ask that question. You come onto our Twitter page talking crap, unfounded, misleading, false narratives, you're going to get blocked. You come on the Facebook page, you're going to get banned. Want to know why? Because we care about the families that care about Black children, brown children, indigenous children. If you don't care about our children, we don't care about you. So stop wasting your time. You wasted 5 minutes of my time today having to talk about this, but just cut it out. You're not going to get an answer. Y'all sound like a bunch of spoiled people who just are used to getting your way. And just like Cooley said, right? They work for us. We don't work for them. All right? Colia, shout out to you. Shout out to everybody that's tuning in. It's the dark side of education. I'm going to get into this interview. Like I said, it's election season. I know it's easy for a lot of us to get caught up on the national election, the show that's happening there. But let's think local, all right? Let's think about what we do locally with our elections. And thank you, Christine. Good morning. When it comes to our local elections, we got to be paying attention, all right? It's easy for that media to have us caught up on what's happening nationally. And I'm not saying that's not important, but, you know, what Ice Cube's talking about right now, I don't care. What does that have to do with our children here in Minnesota? All right, so when we think politics, we think of casting our votes. I hope everybody will get out and vote if you have the opportunity. But we have to think down that ballot, right? We have to flip that ballot over, get to the school board elections, get to those local elections, because that's where things happen, all right? So I'm going to bring on Miss Adriana Cerrigo. She's got her camera off, but when Adriana's back, she's going to join us. So let's welcome, and let me back up here. This is a dear friend of mine. We've worked together. I feel like Adriana is a woman that is 10 toes down for our children, a freedom fighter, pushes back on the status quo. I've had plenty of opportunity to see Adriana in action, and I'm glad to have you on the show today, Ms. Cerrigo. Good morning.
Buenos días, ¿cómo estás?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Good to see you. I'm well overall. You know, I mean, dealing with life. You know, I lost my mother 2 weeks ago, and so it's been hard. And yeah, but I'm actually looking forward to our conversation today, because when we talk about the system oppressing, you know, our communities, you know, that's, my mother shouldn't be dead, Rashad. She self-deported 2 years ago. She didn't have to, you know, no human being is illegal. No human being deserves to go through what she did, and in her honor.
Well, on behalf of the dark side of education, our audience, I'm sorry for your loss, Adriana.
Gracias, Rashad.
Like I told you in a text a couple weeks ago, you're a warrior. Keep fighting the fight, but make sure you take some time to grieve as well, right? So I know you very well, but why don't you just sort of introduce yourself to the audience, let us know why you're running for school board, and then we'll get into some more questions.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. My name is Adriana Cerrigo. I'm originally from Reynosa, Tamaulipas, Mexico. We moved to Texas in 1988. And the reason that we did is actually kind of ironic, is because my youngest brother, he's a U.S. citizen, and he was in need of special education services. So my mother decided, you know, that it would be his best interest, you know, for him to get the support and the resources in Brownsville, Texas. And from there, I went to high school too. You know, I was 15 years old, and my first experience in Welcome to America was with a very racist teacher, you know, that she was giving out a quiz, and I didn't speak the language, right? And I was asking for help to a classmate, and the teacher didn't allow her. So there was a conversation back and forth going on, and the teacher said something that all the students were like in shock, you know, like, and I asked my classmate, what did she say? And she didn't want me to know, but she said she doesn't understand why people like you come to this country. And I'm like, oh, I know, right? So it's, you know, long history, right? So I moved to Florida, and I lived in Florida for 20 years, where I had my children, got married. And in 2007, Rashad, I had a friend of mine that asked me to visit a young mother of 3 that was in the hospital, and she didn't have healthcare coverage. And I promised her, I had never met her before, but we had an immediate connection, perhaps as a young mother myself. And I promised her that I will help her. And while I was looking into options, they kicked her out of the hospital. Kid you not. So that was the very first introduction of me coming into the activism and organizing, world. And
Yeah.
we ended up founding a nonprofit in her honor to save her life and the life of her children. And then 3 years later, I co-founded an academy for youth, Future Leadership Academy, 2010. I moved to Minnesota in 2013. Excuse me. And I fell in love with the city, honestly. I mean, what's not to love about Minneapolis, seriously? And I dove into, like a deeper pool, an ocean of like, wow, this is incredible. I started working in collaboration with different organizations. I ended up in organizing in Chaska in 2014 and got a police officer fired, well, first suspended and then officially fired for racially discriminating Latinos. So that was like a huge inspiration for me, Rashad, coming from the South, in
Yeah.
Florida, where politically things are very oppressed. And I'm like, wow, okay, there are opportunities. Minnesota, well, I would say the Twin Cities is a very fertile land for positive change. And I'm a self-employed, I have my own business. So I've been doing contract work for different nonprofits and businesses as well. And I've been a family advocate for the last 2 years due to the
Shout
fact
out to the family advocate.
this incredible person, Julia Pringle actually was my inspiration, when I was at the Capitol in the Senate building in the finance and what was that committee, Rashad?
Well, I think it was the Education Finance Committee.
There you go. So I was
Where
inspired,
you
and then
were
I
at.
got to meet you, right? And then I ended up getting a contract to become a family advocate. And 3 months later, my mother self-deported. A lot of things, changed in the family. So I drove down to the border, and I ended up getting one of my nephews, to come with me. So I got custody of Michael. So
Yeah.
through the different lenses of being a family advocate and a guardian of a student in a public school, I was just in shock, Rashad, what I was seeing and living myself, as well. So my nephew is a student at Emerson Spanish Dual Immersion School. And
Yes.
make a long story short, we got rid of the principal. And we organized with parents. I'm a site council and PTA member. And yeah, I have been very instrumental in demanding, the district to do more because our kids are being left behind on a daily basis. And I'm not going to stand up for that. Our children need a voice that understands and that is affected directly. Because one thing is to have the good intentions, but another thing is to know the pain. So
Yeah.
that's the reason that I'm running for office.
And there's a big difference between good intentions and understanding that pain, having that life experience. So you described, a history of activism, history of sort of being involved in that space. When you got to, let's say when Michael got to Emerson, you described what was going on there, the actions y'all had to take as families. But one of the things you mentioned early on was your first experience in the classroom with that horrible teacher that you described, right?
Yeah.
Do you think, or have you seen, our families, our children still experiencing that same thing? And can you just sort of talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, Rashad. I mean, it is so sad, I mean, the beauty of a family advocate is that you are there. You're, next to the people that need you the most.
Yeah.
So I would come into this, some schools, Rashad, where we were not even greeted. Okay, there I come with a family. their child has been suspended, for some reason that I don't understand to begin with. And we were not even greeted, like not even good morning, hey, how are you doing? No humility, no respect to the reality that our children and families are feeding them, right? You know what I mean? It's like, come on.
Not even acknowledging y'all when y'all come in the building. I can't imagine, and I've been in schools where that same thing happens, right? But I just can't imagine,
Mhm.
what our experiences, like what our children's experience is like. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
So then, welcoming environment was, not there in some of the schools, not all of them. But also, I would offer, as well to come and sit down next to, the student, right? If the family wanted it for me, to be there, to be present. And what I witnessed myself, it was really sad, it was like, okay, here I am with, Juanito or with Johnny or Mary, right? So
Yeah.
the interaction of the teacher, I did notice that it would change. Oh, hi, he's not alone anymore.
Yeah.
This is behind, in math or reading or you name it, but it's like, oh, okay, I am here, explaining to him or to her what, how to connect with the material, how to connect with the subject. And I go back into my own experience, I wish I had that. I wish I would have had that opportunity and that person, to be there for me, fighting, alongside, not only, having conversations with the principal or the administration, but being present in the classroom. So yes, I'm so grateful for all the opportunities that I have had. And, I'm just looking forward to what it can be because unfortunately, so many times when we work for the system and represent the system, we
Yeah.
are connecting, and that's just not me.
Yeah. I mean, some folks will say, hey, you gotta have an inside the system and an outside the system game. I definitely don't see you as an inside the system type fighter, right? One of
No,
the things that often, no, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, that's I've been getting that a lot, and a lot of people are like, well, continue advocating, and it's like, no, it is time that we flip the tortilla. It is time that we flip that reality and that we bring families to the table, that we bring our children as well. Because when
Yeah.
it comes to creating policy, Rashad, I cannot even have a conversation because policies are not translated in different languages. So how do
Mm-mm.
we expect families to understand and to know that they have the power? And then I would take it to another level. It is different here in Minneapolis, for example. Running for school board, is through the state, right? It's mandated for the state. But there are two cities in the United States where undocumented immigrants are allowed to vote in local elections. When we talk about freedom, Rashad,
Yeah.
freedom to vote and to elect individuals that are representing us at every single level, that's real freedom. And many of our community members don't have that freedom.
And it's unfortunate, right? I mean,
It's sick.
not having that freedom, not being acknowledged, and yeah, there are families who have great experiences in Minneapolis public schools. Um, they usually don't look like you or I. Their children don't usually look like our children. Um, but when I think about, you have that side of that tortilla, I'll say. Uh, and also on the other side of that tortilla, families come and want to participate, right? I mean, there's always this narrative around parents of color, and we're not engaged or we're not participating in the ways that
Even to
white privilege.
that we don't care. Even to
Exactly.
that we don't care. Like families
That's we try to
and
pump.
waste your time, and I'm like, really? We are the mothers that brought these babies into the world. We don't care. No,
What do you say about that?
that's white supremacy. Okay.
Yeah,
And that It is the root of all evil is right there. It's within our education system. I wouldn't have seen what I see, Rashad, honestly, if I didn't become a family advocate, if I didn't have Michael with me, because my girls are grown. My baby's 23. We
Yeah.
survived it. We went through it, but
Yeah.
we weren't alone either. So now it's like being here is we have an incredible opportunity, Rashad. We really do. But it's time, that we just think differently and do things differently as well. Because the system is not going to save us. That
No.
is the reality. It's not going to. So if we don't bring those families, and empower them as well, and also provide the training, for
Yeah.
example, like for me at Emerson, I have been very instrumental in transforming the site council because we had no representation.
Yeah.
Of
Talk about that a little bit, right? Because I really want folks to, understand there are folks who run for elected office, and then there are folks like yourself who would probably continue to be a great leader outside of elected office, but just sort of talk about that a little bit. Like your leadership, it spans way beyond, like running for school board this year, right? I remember the Emerson situation when you got there, and you talk about that, but I remember that at a school and a PTA that was mostly made up of Latina mothers, right? And you had two white women running the PTA. But just sort of talk about your leadership in that situation and how things changed for the better of our children. Will you?
Yes, definitely, Rashad. When we came to Emerson, it was in January 2019. Okay, and so I basically I fell in love with the school. I'll be honest with you because talk about being culturally relevant. Uh, it's a Spanish immersion school that my nephew doesn't speak English, right? So I brought him from. He was born in Texas, and his mom self-deported when he was 3 years old. So now he's 9 years old, and he's with me. We came to Emerson, and I fell in love with the school. I fell in love with the language, everything that's it's around.
Yeah.
Uh, I trusted the system, Rashad. I kind of trusted the system. So we came in January, and so he was in fourth grade, and I'm sorry, in third grade.
Okay,
So
yeah.
we had an incredible teacher, right, Miss Evans. I love her dearly. She's um, African American and white, and I love her. She's beautiful. She did everything that she could within the limited resources that were provided to her to help Michael. I found him a tutor. We were doing everything that we needed to in order to provide him with the support that he needed. I had a conversation with the principal, and I explained to him, this is, Michael is carrying a lot of trauma. He was living in a little village in Mexico due to all the policies implemented. He's a kid that has seen a lot.
Yeah.
Like it's really sad. So we should have been referred immediately to the social worker. We should have been referred immediately to a therapist, and that was not the case. But like I mentioned, I trusted the system, and unfortunately, a lot of our communities, and especially communities of color, we trust the system because we don't know. We're dealing with a lot of trauma ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
women, especially women of color.
Yes.
I was like, okay, so I was really, I was, doing my work as a family advocate. I was advocating at the Capitol as well for the driver's licenses for all. So no, 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 blah, blah, blah. So we ended the school year. And then, August, another, a new year, a new teacher. I asked for help. I explained to her, Michael's situation, and I asked for homework as well. And okay, fine. 2 weeks went by. Nada, Rashad.
Nothing.
Nada. So from there, I started like, I reached out to Julia. What do I do in this, situation? Because now, when you're personally affected, it's a little
Yes.
hard, Rashad, because
Yeah.
now you're emotionally, like not only invested, but like traumatized as well. I was like, okay, all right. So what do I do? So I reached out to the teacher. I sent her an email and I requested a meeting. And when I came to meet her, she, the ESL teacher as well, was part of that meeting. The ESL teacher that doesn't speak Spanish because it's not required. I respect that, whatever. But
Yeah.
if you don't speak the language, how are you accommodating, and connecting with your students? So
That would seem very hard to do.
right, exactly. So I came in, I remember clearly, Rashad. I walked into the classroom and my nephew was there. And we were sitting, it's like I'm here, and the lead teacher is right across me, and the ESL teacher is to my right, and my nephew is to my left. So all of a sudden, I start, like, hey, ¿cómo está? Muchas gracias por, I start speaking Spanish. And the lead teacher, you know what she said? She's like, no, 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 no. She doesn't speak Spanish, the ESL teacher. So that brought a lot of deep rooted trauma. I was like, ah, and I'm like, lo siento mucho. I am sorry. I'm not in here for you. I'm not in here for you. I'm not in here for me. I am here for him. And
Yes.
he needs to understand what is going to be the plan of action for us to support him so that he can be successful academically. Wow, that was the beginning of the war, and I mean, you remember, I came to the office years. I was like all over the place. And one of the things that I did do is that I did reach out to the leadership in the district. I reached out to Kim Ellison because, I know her for many years. And I said, I need you to come and step up and understand what is going on in our schools.
Yeah.
So we started the battle, and it was very much organizing parents, mostly moms, and the principal ended up retiring early because I started doing my homework. In 5 years of his leadership, Rashad, our students went from 42 academic, proficiency to 22.
Mm.
And what was the response? Adriana, our children don't speak the language. Don't pay attention to those, test scores results. Come on. And
Low
I'm like,
expectations.
oh, exactly. And then I was like, what about African Americans? They don't speak the language either? Because that's what they do, Rashad. Because
Yeah.
we don't know any better. We just don't know. And we trust the system. So, when the principal left, we organized, parents. We transformed the site council. We transformed the PTA. We started having our meetings in Spanish and English as well. Because when we talk about like bringing parents, to the table and be part of the conversation, we have to be mindful of the language, uh, opportunities that we have. That should not be a barrier, if not a
Let me, let me pause you. Let me pause you real quick, Adriana. Right? You all flexed your power as parents. You got organized. Oh, you've been working out? No, I'm just saying.
I
Got
got
organized, and as Christina would say here, early retirement for that principle, right? So I just want the listeners to be thinking about, right? One of the things we talk about often on this show, other shows that some of our Ed Reform colleagues are hosting, is the power of parents. And sometimes it might seem as if we are powerless, right? And I always say we feel like that when we don't have the information, right? When the information is hidden from us, it's not easily accessible, it's not in our native tongue, we can feel powerless. But what Adriana described, right, was getting organized, getting that information. You were early on in your family advocate career as far as the work we were doing, but you reached out, right? And from what you described, you sort of you put this research, and I'm forgetting who did the research, but the power of our children having one advocate, right? One advocate, and what having one advocate can lead to. And I'll just say, you ain't gonna say this, Adriana, but I know you've done a hell of a job with your nephew, making sure his needs are met, making sure that you are playing the role that you need to play to not just trust the system, right? And Michael has grown so much in the short time that I've known him. So I just want you to, pat yourself on the back, right? But I wanted folks to just pause and be able to think about the power of parents when we get organized, when we get informed, when we're rowing in the same direction, we can make things happen just as you all did at Emerson. And what's that experience like now, right? After all of that hard work, and I know you gave us the short version of everything y'all did, but what's it like there at Emerson now for our children, for our families?
I mean, it's been incredible, Rashad. Since the principal early retired, we got an interim principal from the district, and then the associate superintendent. He became more, aware and was more present. So we started. We put together a hiring committee. I mean, this is incredible. A hiring committee made out of an equitable representation of our families. So that was ensuring not only that we had, Latine and white parents, but African Americans as well. And they were part of the hiring, committee that interviewed the future prospective principals. How empowering is that, Rashad? Seriously. So they chose, parents from the site council and staff and administration. So we had an equitable representation, but it was not easy either, because the system still, it's like, okay, yeah, we have brown people here, and we have this individual, and I'm like, we don't have. I was not chosen. That was perfectly okay, because I had been mentoring a brown mom, Elena, for the last year and a half, since we came to Emerson, because that has been part of the vision too, that we empower one another, that we lift up one another, so that we can take, leading those entities, that traditionally are not representative by, our people.
Yeah.
So Elena was chosen, and then, it's like a soap opera, Rashad. It's I got an email from the only African American mom and teacher as well at one of Adam Watson, actually, and she asked, I'm just curious, who's part of this committee, and I was like, you're not part of it? You're the only Black person. You're not? So we sent an email to the district, leadership, and it's like, we're not going to have it. You better, choose the equitable representation that you all are talking about, right? So it's being pushed, pushing, continuing, to push on daily basis for that real, justice and equality that we all deserve. So we ended up inheriting the principle from Wyndham because of all the comprehensive, district design, changes.
Yeah.
We were like, just, I feel like fortunate and blessed that we have him, because first of all, he knows how to work in that dual emerging, program. Because unfortunately, not all the principals are equipped with that knowledge, and that's the truth.
I believe it.
Exactly. So, and now our PTA, September 15th, we just had the transformation of our new leadership. So listen to this. For the first time, the mom that I've been, mentoring for a year and a half, Elena, is the new president. The first time. A Mexican mother. Imagine that. But we don't care. But, it's like having, I have her back, right? I'm there with her and for her. And our vice president is Maestro Jesus, a teacher, Mr. Jesus. It's an incredible, beautiful, amazing, T-shirt that understands, our community and is a fighter as well. So those are the elections that are really, get excited, for Rashad, because we
Yeah.
talk about monster, right? We have to transform the federal government totally, absolutely, but for me as a guardian, as a mom, as a grandmother, it's like we need to be excited for the site council and the PTA. And the
Yeah.
PTAs, PTOs are nonprofit organizations. Imagine
Yeah.
within the schools. If we utilize those entities in the way that we should, we could transform our schools. And
And
the
I
way
mean,
I
we
one
have to have folks, sorry to cut you off, right? But we have to have folks like Elena who are going to be thinking about our children rather than thinking about which type of cookies we're going to sell at the annual bake sale, right?
Mm,
I mean, when
that's
I think of PTAs and PTOs, that's the type of stuff that comes out of those groups, right? Until you have that representation that you're talking about, uh, you know, it took a while to get there, but again, great work there. Way to really show the power of parents, right? The power of getting organized, the power of getting that information. You brought up the CDD, comprehensive district design. Um, I think, well, I'll tell you what I think, and then I'm just going to get your thoughts on it. But I think that comprehensive district design, and let me back up a little bit, because something that popped into my head as you were describing how you all as parents worked hard to turn around this public school, right? Something that popped into my head was like, oh, well, Minnesota Parent Union, Rashad, Cooley, you all just want to destroy public schools, right? But you described you were a family advocate at the time, and this Emerson is a district school, traditional public school, and you put in that work, right? So for any of the busters that are listening, because I know y'all be watching, trying to figure things out, you're hearing the truth, right? The truth is we want schools to provide a quality education, a quality experience for our children. We don't care which type of school it is. We want quality, right? I'll get off of that soapbox and get on to this comprehensive district design, which I feel a couple of things, right? I feel like family voices were excluded. And when I say families, most folks know who I'm talking about, but families of color, our voices were excluded, ignored when we did show up. They didn't have interpreters when families did want to participate. But the comprehensive district design, in my mind, what was something that was rushed, um, it is not going to lead to our children being able to read. Like I don't see academics as part of that plan, and I was very surprised uh, that during the beginning of the comprehensive district design, I remember yourself, Coolio, we all, sort of called for them to delay that vote, right?
Mhm.
There was a lot of pushback on you women of color from white women who claim to be advancing equity, right? Can you just share with us your thoughts on the comprehensive district design in the big picture, but just also your experience working with families, trying to get in that information, sort of walk us through that CDD, because you said you like action, and I want folks to know that you're all about action, right? My comment earlier when I said, well, you're not an inside fighter, right? You're not an inside the system. I believe that we need folks who are outside of the system fighters to go on the inside and keep them 10 toes down for our children. But just tell us what you think about the comprehensive district design.
Yes, thank you, Rashad. I mean, to begin with, I was just in shock, that the district was going to be making all these changes without any community input. And it took me a little bit of time to really like kind of, like we started going to the board meetings and little by little, I was like, okay, we didn't come, shouting, we didn't come screaming, we didn't come by, shutting down their meetings. It took me like, maybe 4 months to finally like, see through the intentions of the district. And I'm gonna just say this briefly because most of them are not affected, Rashad. Most of them, like don't have, children in the district. So if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
So once I got to understand, like, what do you mean you're gonna be like creating all these changes and doing all of this, moving, and shuffling kids in the name of equity? And so that's when we started bringing, parents to the meetings, and I actually requested interpreters. And that was back in, I went back in through my emails, right? It was in April. It was in April that for the committee of the whole that I had requested interpreters, and their response was, "We'll get back to you." Of course, they never
So
did.
hold on, Adriana. So they want families to participate. They want to say they're not involved. But then Latinx families show up. I remember Somali families showing up during that time, and there's no interpreters. Right? Ridiculous.
Zero whatsoever. And that's once again, I have to like, okay, we are in a moment in history where like, okay, if you represent the system and you work for the system and you have been perfectly okay not shutting things down, I'm not okay with that. And we should not be okay because we have a moral obligation to stand up for our children. So we showed up, and that was in April 19th. And, they were having their meeting, and it's like, blah, 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 na, na, na. And I'm like, where are the interpreters? Here I come, trusting the system again, and it's like, excuse me, no intérpretes. And at the time, it was Nelson Inns, the chair of the board. And he stopped the committee of the whole, and they went to bring interpreters from their staff, not even professional paid interpreters, right? And what is it that they did? He came back, all of them sat down, and they're like, okay, those of you that need interpreters, please step outside and go to the conference rooms. And what do? People that have been oppressed, people that trust the system, people got up and they went outside. And I'm there, Rashad, I'm sitting down, and I'm like, goodness, this is not happening. I'm like digesting this, and I stand up and I'm sitting towards the back, and I'm like, no, what is it that you're doing? I cannot believe it. And they're all looking at me like, I see you, but I don't see you. That Minnesota nice, attitude that we have of denying, the truth. So I went out the way to the front, and I said, I will not allow you to do this to my community. I will not, and I went off on them, and went outside, brought the moms back. And I remember Rashad was a Somali mom. She started crying. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And she's like, no, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We never, like we are never heard. So that was the moment of me understanding, Rashad, like, no, the district has an obligation to truly serve our community. And the CDD was something that they wanted just to push and force upon us without having a real dialogue and an authentic conversation. So moving forward, I'm hopeful, but we must be diligent. We must.
Yeah.
And that's the reality that, you all need to continue, advocating and having the family advocates present in our schools so that our families are truly empowered. Because when it comes to the implementation of the CDD, it's like the devil is within the details, right? So, yeah, it's like an open book in here. But I'm hopeful, Rashad.
I was going to say, I forgot to tell you before the show, Adriana, don't make no tears come to my eyes, okay?
I know, right? It's real,
That
right?
passion, it's your passion, right? And I hope that our viewers can feel that passion through the screen, right? And
The passion,
you know,
Rashad. It's also the
huh?
pain. It's also the pain and suffering, that enough is enough. Enough is enough, and our pain needs to be transformed and channeled, in a passionate way to do action. And people like
Yeah,
us deserve to be at any elected official, position, to be creating policy that makes sense for our community. So that's where I am, and that's the reason that I, decided to run for school board, because the seat of white supremacy, is all over the place, right? But the seat of it,
oh yeah,
our education system, and it is intentional. It is intentional for the system to have our babies not be able to read, not be able to write, to do math, or to be able to understand that they are incredible human beings. So
yeah.
that's what we need to do. In order to change the future, we need to do the change and invest today.
I mean, and it's like we have to. I always say when I'm talking to young folks, right? When I sort of share that pain and the trauma, that I experienced as a youngster, right? I always say that the level of pain or the level of trauma could be different, right? We're not. We all have our own story, but I feel like folks like yourself, when you have some real stuff to tap into, it makes it easier to speak that truth to power, right? It makes it easier because you're aware, you remember what it felt like. You said your daughters, right, that y'all survived the system, right? And here you are fighting to make sure our children have an opportunity to thrive, right? Not just survive this public education system, but actually thrive. And one of the big gaps I see, whether it's school board, whether it's down at the Capitol, is there are so many folks who don't have that story to tap into, or they don't have the awareness to even think to tap into that story, right? That they've given up everything about them to fit into this white supremacist system, and they've lost everything. So now when they're having to make decisions, it's from a place of privilege, right? Privilege with a great or deep lack of awareness. I don't
Right.
see that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Rashad. No, it is true. I mean, it's because I see a lot of people with good intentions, stepping up to the plate. But it's like, if you have not been through it, it's, you don't know. Like I mentioned, I survived it with my girls, but you know what? We went through our own pain and suffering. My
Yeah,
youngest daughter, was suspended for stealing. All right. And it's like, oh gosh, it's, yeah, I went through my own experience, with them, and so it was my oldest daughter first, and then my oldest daughter, and it happened to be the dean of the same, school that they attended. It was a middle school. So it was a pattern,
yeah,
from uh, white, dean of the school that had an issue with brown kids. So I can go back in time, Rashad, and think about it, because the spirit of being a fighter, has been within me since I was born. It's something that I
believe,
inherited from my ancestors. I'm
believe it.
honored to that. And so I ended up, like, back then, organizing also and getting this dean of a school demoted, because it's like it was a pattern. I started seeing things around and talking to other parents, and they were going through the same experience. So
Yeah,
I bring, to this campaign, my own experience, my fierce activism, because we cannot be compromising the future of our babies, Rashad. And that's why
not at all.
you know, in politics, because it's oh, because I'm from this party or that party or blah blah blah. No, no, no. Guess what? Her children not political
Exactly.
pawns. They
No,
are the future, of the world, and they deserve for us to be fighting and shutting things down for them, so that they can
yeah,
receive all the resources and the justice that they do deserve. And when it comes to the district that I'm running for, District 4, is a very diverse district, Rashad. You know, we're talking about Whittier Elementary, Jefferson, Emerson, and Watson, you know, even City View, which is within, you know, a school within the corrections facility. Imagine that. Fair High School, Brand Mart, and in Kenwood. So like yesterday we had a parade, Rashad. We had
Yeah,
a
how did that go? I seen the car. That looks super cool. How was the parade?
it was incredible, you know, and it's so what we did, you know, this was September 15th. That was the day of the voting for the PTA leadership as well. So it's all like very symbolic as well. So we put together an event to paint a car that was donated to the campaign. And the art teacher, you know, from Emerson, Miss Mina,
Yeah.
she's very invested in the campaign, and that's, you know, those are the types of relationships that I have been building alongside, because, you know, I'm working with teachers, you know, I'm working with staff and administration, and she was like, why don't we do this? And I'm like, yeah, why not? You know, so we brought families, we brought community, we brought children, and then yesterday we had a parade of like over 10 art cars, you know, in District 4. And when we are driving through the district, Rashad, you know, to me, it's like, that's a representation of the United States of America. Like just District 4 schools, you know, very diverse schools. And then you enter Kenwood. Kenwood is a very wealthy neighborhood. Kenwood is a very high performing school. And I actually had a conversation with several families yesterday too. And I told them, you know, I mean, you're all blessed beyond belief. And, you know, so, but how do we bring together District 4 schools, you know, along with PTA, to have conversations so that we can be helpful and be supportive of one another? Because it's like, and I feel like that has not been part of the conversation, because I never met like my board of directors representative. I like, where are they? Like, you know, I work for myself. I have that luxury and privilege. Therefore, you know, like serving in the board will be my number one priority. This will not be icing on the cake, you know, because it doesn't pay a lot. That's the truth. You don't get benefits either.
And I think that's the thing, though, Adriana, is that you're bringing a, you know, a fresh perspective. You know what I'm saying? If you get elected, I said it like you're already elected, but I'm hoping you get elected. Um, but you bring a fresh perspective. You bring that pain and that passion that we talked about, and you prioritize our children, right? You prioritize families, and I think that's going to be different if you are elected to represent District 4. I think that's going to be something that they're going to be able to see right away, is that you are involved in the community, you're great at collaborating, building those relationships, but you keep the goal on our children, right? You keep that focus on our children. It was something you said earlier, and I lost my train of thought for a second there, but if I think of it, I'll come back to it. We got about 5 minutes left. I've posted, for folks that are watching, I've posted Adriana's website in the comments. You know, let this be my ask as Rashad Turner. If you are able, drop a few dollars to the campaign, make a contribution. I'm going to make another contribution right after the show's over. But just any last thoughts that you want to leave the audience with? I'm seeing in the comments here, folks are feeling you, right? They might not all be able to vote for you, but I think it's a great sign when someone can stay true to how you operate, just like you have, right? It's not easy to speak that truth to power. It's not easy to tell the power structures or the systems that, you know, you're wrong, right? But just sort of, you know, some final thoughts. And I don't even want to say final thoughts, but so some last words for today, as folks head into the rest of their Sunday.
Okay, well, just to, ensure and make sure that you're doing the right thing, that we all are. We have a moral responsibility to transform the education system, just, the whole system, but it starts right there by providing our children with the equitable representation and all the resources that they do deserve and need. I am a proven leader. I have been in the trenches, doing the work for our babies and our communities. This is nothing new to me. I don't come from the premise of good intentions, if not being a freedom fighter. And if you cannot vote for us, what you can do is donate to our campaign. This is a grassroots campaign, and I am so blessed and fortunate to have youth leading this campaign because that's part
Nice.
of the vision, so that they understand that politics is a reality and we need to know and learn the rules of the game so that we can liberate our communities. So make sure that you visit our website and donate $1, $5, anything helps. This is the last week that we are pushing for fundraiser because election day is around the corner. So muchas
Yeah.
gracias a todos. Thank you, Rashad.
Hey, I thank you, Adriana. Appreciate you coming on. I'll let you get to Sunday. Great luck with everything. Obviously, we'll be in touch and talk to you soon. All right.
Absolutely.
Much love to you, Adriana.
Likewise, brother. Take care.
All right. Peace. So that was Adriana Cerrigo, District 4 MPS board candidate. I hope that, folks were able to hear what I've been experiencing with Adriana over this past, 3-4 years, if not longer than that. I think she's 10 toes down for our children. I think that we need to have elected officials who understand the game, who understand the importance of getting that information. I think it's clear that Adriana's a champion of our children, right? A champion of families. And, if I could wave a magic wand, it'd be great to see her on that board. Because right now, that Minneapolis Public School Board, they haven't been doing much, right? I mean, we've got a new chair now with Miss Ellison. So hopefully, as we move forward, things start to improve. But one of the other things I wanted to point out is that you heard Adriana describe the experience of families that she's been working with, the experience as, a family in the district, right? And I hope that you were able to connect the dots as to why there is still a boycott of Minneapolis public schools. Them ignoring families of color isn't something new. Maybe this boycott is new, but I hope you were able to hear some examples of why we feel, and a lot of families feel, Minneapolis public schools needs to step it up. I appreciate Adriana coming on. I appreciate y'all's comments today. Good engagement. I want to I seen a comment come in here that I wanted to laugh about. Let me find it here. Anyways, it was from my boy Josh. He asked me if I've been on the beach because he's seen my tan lines. Yes, I've been on the beach, Josh, and I'm about to go back once these clouds and this fog moves out. So I'm going to get ready to get to the beach. Y'all get to y'all Sundays. Again, this is Dark Side of Education with Rashad Turner. We will see y'all next week, 10 a.m. But also stay tuned. We've got some more school board forums coming up. I'm going to get some more candidates on here as we head into these final few weeks before the election. I appreciate y'all. There you go, Josh. Well deserved, bro. Well, thank you. Thank you. I had to take a week off. This is my first week I've taken off, so it was pretty good. Felt good. But appreciate y'all. Tune in next week. Remember, quality is a must. Failure is not an option. God's peace and blessings, everyone. See y'all soon.